Let's bring in NBC News law enforcement analyst Jim Kavanaugh, and let's start with NBC News legal analyst Misty Marris, because we just heard the vice president say something there. He used to be a lawyer, right? He said the agent was protected by absolute immunity. What is he suggesting there? Could he face charges?
So he absolutely could face charges at the federal level. That could be a deprivation of rights resulting in death. That would not have an immunity issue. But if the state were to move forward with a prosecution, which would be a homicide or a reckless homicide, there's an argument that would be made that because he's a federal officer, he's protected by immunity from state criminal charges. And that the analysis would be whether or not he was executing his lawful federal duties. So, Kate, we get back to that critical question. What was happening at the time, and were his actions justified in this particular incident? And it would be the first defense that's raised as a threshold issue if there were to be a state prosecution.
We also heard from Minnesota Governor Tim Walz earlier about the way the investigation is being handled. I want to listen to that.
It feels now that Minnesota has been taken out of the investigation, it feels very, very difficult that we will get a fair outcome. And I say that only because people in positions of power have already passed judgment, from the president.
The governor is a Democrat. He's suggesting local authorities are not aiding in this investigation into the shooting. Is that possible?
Well, it's really critical here that there is an independent investigation, meaning that everybody is going and looking for the truth in order to make decisions on what comes next. And there would be a few things happening at the same time. You'd have ICE doing an internal administrative investigation about whether or not there were rules violated. Then you'd have the feds, who would be leading an investigation in coordination with the U.S. attorney, criminal investigation, and generally, in a perfect world, you have the state and local authorities doing an investigation as well to get to those answers.
Just not sure if we're living in a perfect world right now or not. Jim, we've been showing different angles of videos taken by witnesses. What are you looking at? What stands out to you in those videos?
Well, Kate, it's when you're allowed to shoot as a law enforcement officer, when you're allowed to use deadly force. That's the critical issue that you and Misty are also discussing here. So if you're under threat to being hit by a vehicle, and it doesn't matter who's driving the vehicle or the reason or how bad they are, if they're Al Capone or if they're just a neighbor, if the vehicle's coming at you and you're under imminent threat of great bodily harm or death, then you can use deadly force. And that's when you can use it. But if you're not being attacked by the vehicle, then you cannot use deadly force. So what's critical in the case is, where was the agent? What was his position? Where did he fire his gun from? Now, we can look at the videos. We can see everything that's happening there, the smoke from the discharged rounds, the position of the ICE agent. And we can also, we don't know, but the wounds on Ms. Good will also be very critical as this case is looked at.
Yeah.
Was she shot directly in the front, on the side of the head, behind the ear? Where's the wounds? Because that also tells you the position. And each round, a law enforcement officer is responsible for every round.
Yeah.
So if the threat moves past you, then you're not allowed to shoot. So that's what's going to be the investigation is going to have to, uncover. And just to close, I would say the governor says, Minnesota's out of the investigation, but the facts will never leave Minnesota. And the facts are never going to change. The wounds on the victim won't change. The video's not going to change. The arguments will change, but none of the facts.
It's a fair point. Jim Kavanaugh, thank you. Misty Marris, thanks to you both. Appreciate you.